Today on the channel, I'll be cooking a shepherd's pie on my Weber Q. To begin, I'm going to grab a 10-inch cast iron skillet, drizzle a little bit of olive oil in it, and then let this preheat on high for about 10 to 15 minutes. And with the cast iron now preheated, I'm going to set my gas knob to a medium heat where it will remain for the rest of the cook. The first thing we're going to add to the skillet is one whole diced yellow onion. You could use white onion if that's your preference instead. Once it's in the skillet, just give it a quick mix to break up the pieces. And now for the protein. Shepherd's pie calls for lamb. So here I have 1 pound of lamb that I'm going to add to the skillet and break up with this wooden spoon. You can use ground beef as a substitute, but if you do, then this would technically be a cottage pie instead of a shepherd's pie. You're going to cook this meat and onion mixture down for about 8 minutes, stirring occasionally. And after about 8 minutes, we're ready to move on to our next step. As I open the lid, you'll see that a lot of liquid and fat has rendered out of both the onions and the lamb. So we're going to just go ahead and scoop some of this out. This is proving to be a little bit difficult to juggle on camera, but using a ladle and tilting the cast iron skillet if necessary, we can start scooping out some of this liquid and this rendered fat. It doesn't have to be perfect, you just don't want your lamb and your onions swimming in this liquid, at least not quite yet. Once you've removed the liquid that you could easily scoop out, it's time to add some vegetables to our skillet. Carrots and peas are pretty traditional at this point, but for today's recipe, I'm going to use carrots and mushrooms. I actually went ahead and pre-chopped these with a food processor inside before cooking. So here I have about 3 cups of carrots and mushrooms that I ran through the food processor, and I'm going to add this to the skillet. 3 cups might seem like a lot, but it does cook down and shrink a bit as we continue to move along, and will end up being the perfect ratio. Anyways, give this all a little bit of a mix and a stir, and then we can add our seasonings and spices. To begin, I've got some kosher salt, and of course, whenever we have salt, we're going to crack some freshly ground black pepper. I don't usually measure out my salt and pepper, I just add both to taste. Once set, follow that up with some rosemary. I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon of rosemary to the skillet. And once again, we mix. Once you've given everything a quick little stir, we're going to shut the lid and let this whole mixture cook down for about 5 minutes. And after about 5 minutes, our carrots and mushrooms are starting to soften up a little bit, and this entire mixture smells absolutely delicious. But we're not quite done with the ingredients yet, because next up, we need about 3 cloves of chopped garlic. Into the skillet this goes. Mix that garlic in with everything else in the skillet. Man, I love garlic. It just makes every dish just that much more fragrant. Shut the lid and let this all cook down for another minute or 2. After a quick minute, it's time to start building our gravy. The cool thing about shepherd's pie is that the gravy is baked inside of the pie. So here's how we do this. First, you're going to need 3/4 cups of red wine. Any old red wine will do. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Follow that up with 3/4 cups of beef broth. Whoops, don't want to waste any of this. There we go. Next up, add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. There's 1 tablespoon, and there's 2. Finally, some Worcestershire sauce. Add about a tablespoon as well. And that's everything you need for the gravy. So go ahead and give everything a stir and a mix, and let this whole thing simmer and reduce and thicken for about 20 to 30 minutes. If you find that your gravy is a little bit too soupy for your liking, you could add a little bit of flour to the mixture to help thicken it up. It does help, but quite frankly, the most important variable at this stage is just time. You need time for your gravy to reduce and thicken. So shut the lid and let this go for at least 20 to 30 minutes. In my demonstration today, I let my gravy simmer for about 30 minutes, and this is what it looks like after that time. It's still a little bit more watery than I'd like, but you can see that it has thickened up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add the mashed potato layer now. That's right, a layer of mashed potatoes goes on top of everything in our skillet. So just scoop those potatoes right on there. So where exactly did these potatoes come from? Well, during this entire time, my lovely wife helped prepare some mashed potatoes inside. But if you don't have a partner or a sous chef, you could very easily prepare your mashed potatoes while your gravy is simmering. Anyways, as you layer your potatoes on top of the gravy, start smoothing it out with a wooden spoon. We used 4 medium-sized potatoes for our mashed potatoes, and you can see it doesn't quite cover the entire surface of our skillet, but that's okay. Because we could start covering some of those gaps with some shredded Parmesan cheese that also goes on top of the potatoes. Add as much cheese as you'd like. Once you're satisfied, grab a roasting rack and slide this under your skillet. We're just going to elevate the skillet off the direct heat a little bit as we let our shepherd's pie bake for about 30 minutes. This will melt the cheese and really crisp up the surface. Remember, our gas knob has been at a medium heat the entire time, which is where it remains. And after 30 minutes, our shepherd's pie has come on off the grill. As you can see, the Parmesan cheese, as well as some of the gravy that has bubbled out and through the mashed potato layer, has formed a nice crispy crust. But what does our shepherd's pie look like underneath this top layer? Let's find out by scooping out a piece. Well, it might be hard to tell from that first piece or from this angle, but this is perfection. As you can see, the gravy has thickened up really nicely, and the lamb is moist and tender and perfectly cooked underneath this blanket of mashed potatoes and Parmesan cheese. This is a terrific meal for a cold, dreary, drizzly day here in the Chicago winter. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I cannot wait to see you all again next time. Bye!